Okay, I think I'm live. If you folks are here, it would be awesome if somebody could confirm if you can see me, hear me, if this is working. Because for some reason, I had to refresh YouTube itself a few times. It didn't want to connect me for a live stream. So yeah, just let me know if this is working. That would be amazing. Okay. Yeah, thank you so much. That's a relief actually. I wasn't sure if I was going to make it. But yeah, so to start off, I suppose happy equinox to everybody. I hope that everybody's having a relatively good equinox, good day, at least for what's possible with the climate of everything that's going on in the world recently, which is kind of hard to, kind of just ignore, forget, and have fun, I suppose. So yeah, we do what we have to do. We deal with what we have to deal with, and so on. But anyway, I know that I usually start these seasonal live streams by just chatting about stuff and sharing my recent faves and shit like that. But honestly, if I'm to be real with you guys, and you know that I always am, I really don't feel like talking about that kind of stuff unless you want to know that, like, what I've been into recently is valerian root to keep my fucking nervous system, relatively chill, or like protection oils to deal with shit. I have been struggling a lot the past few months, the entire summer pretty much has been very difficult for me on a personal, just like life level, I suppose. I never talk about my private life online, especially not like fully publicly. So I will definitely not be sharing any tea or anything. But yeah, it's been some of the most difficult months since I can remember in my life. So yeah, that's been a thing. And on top of that, I know everybody is fucking struggling because of like everything that's happening in the world outside of our private lives. So yeah, it's honestly just been hell, right? And I'm pretty sure that many people feel similarly. I'm seeing a lot of people just being completely burnt out, exhausted, just emotionally overwhelmed and overburdened with everything. That's just the reality of the current global climate, I suppose. So I'm here today, to chat about everything, all of that, and also read cards for you. I have my Bohemian Gothic with me today, which feels very appropriate for the time of year and for the overall climate. Before we do that, I do have some questions for the Q&A that I received prior to the live, both from my patrons on Patreon as well as um, via Instagram. So I would like to answer those Q&A questions first. Then we will move on to reading cards for you folks. And if you have any question, either like any question you would like to ask me, or if you would like to me to read cards for you, please enter your questions in caps lock in the chat so that I can be sure that I see them. Okay. If I miss your question, just make sure that you like copy and paste it again in caps lock. Sometimes depending like how many people we get, the chat gets busy and I sometimes can miss something, so it's definitely not intentional. But yeah, anyway, so I guess let's just start with the Q&A questions that I got from you folks. I just picked some from the Instagram, and then I will go through the ones I got on Patreon. I don't want to like have this be the main chunk of the live today. So I just picked a few questions that I liked, basically. And the first one, which I feel is also very appropriate for the time of year, somebody asked, "How do you honor your beloved dead during this time?" And I'm guessing by this time the person means this time of year. So I would like to stress something that I think is very important in general, if you are somebody who's interested in working with the ancestors or honoring your ancestors in any way. This is not something that you do at one time of year. This is not something that you do in October because it's spooky season. If you want to honor your ancestors, you need to be serious about it. And for me, this is an ongoing thing that I do throughout the entirety of the year, and not just in this time period. And my honoring of the dead and my honoring of the ancestors and working with them has a structure that's independent of the seasons, you could say. Okay, so for me personally, and if you've been on my Patreon and in our community, then you know that I am somebody who does daily offerings in the morning. Every single morning I wake up, I give offerings to the ancestors, to the spirits of the household, and to the land spirits around my property first thing in the morning when I brew my morning coffee. And when I imbibe it, I also make sure that they have something to drink or eat as well together with me. That's the main offering that they always receive from me. Other than that, of course, this would depend on our relationship. Because if you practice folk magic, if you are an animist, you have ongoing relationships with the spirits that you work with, and what you do and how you honor the beings that you work with heavily depends on the the lived experience that you have. This is not something that's you are supposed to do this and that in fixed, scenarios because somebody says so. This is more so a lived experience, as if you had a relationship with a human, for example. So, what do you do to cultivate a good relationship, a good friendship, a good romantic relationship, any type with somebody? It's not going to be something that's like written in a book somewhere. You need to figure it out with the person with whom you are cultivating the relationship. And it's the same with the dead. Okay, so I know that may be a bit disappointing to hear that there's like nothing that can be prescribed in this regard when it comes to Slavic traditions and Polish folk traditions particularly. um, in autumn time, this is something that kind of intensifies around the end of October and especially the beginning of November, when we celebrate Zaduszki, so the All Souls Day. That's kind of like a period of time where it's a time of really focused ancestor veneration, right? But that's still like over a month away, so I don't feel like it makes sense to talk more in depth about that now, especially since I'm also going to be releasing another episode of Threads of Tradition with fellow Slavic folks from different regions, where we are going to be comparing those traditions for you people, so you can kind of glean from different perspectives from different regions what this may look like. So I guess I will stop at that for now with this question. Um, Another question I received was, what are the bird/crow meanings in Polish folklore? And when it comes to questions like this, it's interesting because I often get questions on any types of Q&A, usually when I do these on Instagram, where people ask about the meaning of an animal. And I also would like to stress that this is not how we approach living beings, okay? This would be equivalent to asking what's the meaning of this particular human, or like what's the meaning of humanity. Do you get what I'm trying to say? It's kind of fucking ridiculous. So what we would like to know instead, there's no fixed meanings, and we got used to that because there's esoteric books about like spirit animals and that kind of stuff, and like oracle decks where every animal has an assigned meaning. Like this animal means transformation, that animal means like healing, and that animal means protection, and that kind of stuff. In my personal opinion and perspective as a folk witch from Poland, that stuff is fake, and it's minimizing the personalities of animals as individuals, and how they are perceived in particular regions and what they mean to the people who exist around them and all of that. We don't want to approach them like objects. So in Polish folklore, when it comes to any animal, the lore and how we treat certain animals and the kind of omens that they can bring us, the messages they can bring us, how they are included into our traditions, all of that stuff depends on the region. Okay, so this is also not going to be fixed in stone across Poland. So when we are talking about crows, for example, I know that there's not a lot of folklore actually. And the tales differ depending on the region. But if we were to kind of condense what we are getting about the crows across regions, it would be that they are truthful, they are truth speakers. We can commune with them or ask them about something, and they will likely tell us the truth. Whereas there are other birds who may be more interested in actually deceiving us in some respects. So the crow would be somebody who is telling the truth if you ask them and if you know how to ask them. Okay. We, I think, have in general just more folklore about ravens than crows actually across Poland. And ravens, of course, kind of have like this dark reputation. There's this kind of folk Catholic, I would say, story about the how ravens became who they are, and it was actually back in the Great Flood times when I forgot what this dude was called, Noah, Noah's Ark, right? He asked the dove and the raven to fly out there and see if the flood is receding and if there's any land that they could get to get off the boat. But so the dove and the raven flew out there to scout around. But actually, pretty soon, the raven was kind of, I guess, forgot his mission, and he got fixated on the fact that he saw a lot of dead bodies of various creatures floating on the water. And he started eating, some of their remains and completely forgot that he was supposed to look for land. So by the time he flew back, he just said like, no, I saw no land. But at the same time, the dove returned with the sprig of an olive tree, I believe that was. So they got kind of mad at the raven that he basically lied, right? So that's when the raven, because both the raven and the dove were initially, according to this legend, they were white birds. But as punishment, God turned the raven to become black. And since that point on, he was kind of like this dark omen, essentially. So that's just one folkloric interpretation of, ravens as birds. And generally speaking, because of this situation, the dark reputation followed them, and so no humans or no other, like no animals, wanted to befriend the raven. So in the end, he befriended folkloric devils and witches, and that's how ravens became, befriended them and became one with their agenda, you could say. So that's how witches learned how to transform into ravens, and also how to communicate with ravens to make them like fly out there and gather information, spy for them essentially, or like do various chores for the devil, right? So in the end, you could say that ravens are those kind of dark omens. If you see them, especially in big groups, that could mean death. Or that could mean that, devils and witches are spying around, or they themselves are transformed into the ravens and flying around, doing some devilish stuff. So that's crow and raven Polish folklore for you. And again, the stories may depend on region. There's probably many more stories about these birds that I am not even aware of their existence, because they are in regions where I never visited and never got to know these stories. So when you ask about animals, always make sure that you understand the broader context of where these stories come from, why they are important, and how the culture and the values of the people influence those stories. Basically, all of that is very important. That's context. We shouldn't be approaching that as some like fixed stuff with one or two keywords for a meaning of an animal. That's very reductive. Let me just catch up on the chat. Oh yeah, happy Equinox, everybody. Hmm. Yeah, I'm happy to see you all, and I already see some questions. I will get to them very soon. Um, yeah, hi. It's awesome to see you folks. So another question I got, which I thought was fun, so I thought I would answer this, is what made you do the move from chaos to folk magic? And I would love to answer this because there's a lot of, I think, just shit circulating around about chaos magic. And I would like to offer some perspective while answering this question, because those of you who know me for a longer period of time, you probably know that in my teens and 20s, I used to identify as a chaos magician or a chaos practitioner, right? And when I hear people talking about chaos magic, especially from the perspective of the kind of practitioner I am today, which is, practicing mostly traditional magic, folk magic, reconstructing actual historical practices and old spells, digging up, the stuff that our ancestors did, all of that. In those types of circles, what I hear people say about chaos magic, I think is frankly bullshit and coming from a misunderstood place, because what I'm hearing is that people think chaos magic is essentially just borrowing freely from any and all traditions all at the same time, making some kind of loose structure out of that, which doesn't have to adhere to any, cohesive rules or anything like that, and basically just going with it. And that's what people often perceive chaos magic to be. That's incorrect. That's not what chaos magic is. If you've And I'm sure that most folks who talk this kind of stuff have themselves maybe started with those kinds of books and shit, and that didn't work for them for reasons, right? But let's skip that part maybe of analysis today. The thing is that if you've read sources about what chaos magic is, it essentially boils down to these two things, I would say. First of all, that you are using the experimental method, which is, actually very meticulous when it comes down to it, because you need to be deeply studying everything you do and recording the results and then analyzing the results to make sure that what you're doing, like, you can observe the outcome and you can tweak it to make it actually work. That's the experimental method in a very, very, kind of flattened, version of it, at least. And then the second component, I would say, is the suspension of disbelief. And this is at the core of chaos magic. Okay. So the suspension of disbelief doesn't mean that you are just borrowing from anywhere and creating some kind of chaotic practice out of that. Instead, it means that you are training your mind to be able to pick a kind of tradition, or a paradigm or point of view, and suspend your disbelief so that you can actually assume that paradigm and choose that you want to believe it and practice within that paradigm for a time. But you are not committing to it for a lifetime. Okay. So this doesn't equal borrowing from several sources at the same time. This is something very different. For example, you can choose to become a Wiccan for a year as part of your suspension of disbelief to test that tradition. Okay. This sounds very different now than just eclectically mixing anything without, a kind of logical structure behind it. So In my humble opinion, chaos magic is great for people who don't want to commit to any tradition in particular yet because they are not ready, because they are just starting out, they are not familiar with the history of occultism and witchcraft. These things, to like fully grasp the spectrum of what's out there, it takes years. It takes years of study, of experimentation, of getting to know stuff. So if you are denied this possibility of just seeing what's out there, testing the waters without committing at first, and you are forcing yourself to commit to something without knowing if it's actually going to work out for you long term, I personally don't think that's the best option, just in general in life, not just when it comes to like witchcraft or magic practice, just in general in life. It would be nice to be aware of what you're choosing. So I would say chaos magic is a good option to start with so that you can understand yourself as a practitioner and your needs and how you operate and all of that, and also the traditions that are out there. And when you are ready, you can commit to something. And with this, I would like to actually answer the question, which was again, what made you do the move from chaos to folk magic? So I started off with chaos magic because I didn't want to commit, because I didn't know where I was standing with my belief. For a very long time, I actually struggled with believing in the existence of spirits. That was just something that I couldn't overcome. I had to start off my practice as a young practitioner from the more of this like psychological paradigm because I was unable to wrap my mind around the existence of spirits. So I needed to test what's out there. I needed to make it work for me, and I needed to go through enough experimentation to understand what's working for me. And over time, with experience, with better and broader understanding of myself, my practice, and the traditions that are out there, when I was finally ready, that's when I committed to folk magic and animism, because at that point I was mature enough as a practitioner to understand that that's what's going to work for me. And it did. It clicked perfectly because I knew why I chose it. At that point, I was ready. So, again, I think chaos magic is great to start off with if you're doing this in a smart way. As I was saying, with the suspension of disbelief, to test the waters and to get to know yourself, and with the usage of the experimental method as well, which I think is very useful anyway, no matter what tradition you choose. And many people implement elements of the experimental method, which is derived from science, by the way, not from magic per se, in their craft to min max the tech that you're using to make sure that it's actually working every time the way you want, and not just like half of the time or less. Okay, so, and by the way, I do have like an older video on Patreon about that, about the experimental method, like explained in depth, if anybody would be interested in that actually. So yeah, that's why my shift happened. I at first wasn't ready, and then I was ready, so I made the shift. I was able to commit to something, and I didn't have to use the suspension of disbelief anymore, because I actually arrived at a point where I could believe in something for real. Does that make sense? I hope so. I'm just going to have like a sip. And these were from Instagram. And now we can move on to Patreon. So I do have some requests for readings. So those will be done in a moment. But I also have one question here. I have had a lot of conversations around resiliency with folks as we head back into winter. I was wondering what are ways that you cultivate resiliency in your own life and practice. I think this is something that we could all use in the current, as I was saying at the beginning, in the current state of the world in general, right? Because it's kind of a fucking mess, honestly. um and also, as I was saying, I've been kind of going through it. I'm in a very difficult period in my life right now in terms of like changes and personal life. So resiliency is the only thing that's helping me survive. And honestly, the way I personally choose to cultivate it at this time is making sure that I am not alone with my problems. I know this sounds like such a fucking cliche, but being surrounded by people whom you can trust, knowing that there's people with you, family, loved ones, the closest people to you, the core, that you know that they are always going to be there for you. Uh, that's probably the best reassurance you can get in situations where everything else is just going to shit, right? And when we are like looking in the context of the current global situation, we can't really depend on the authorities. We don't know like how things are going to be developing politically and so on. And there's a lot of uncertainty, a lot of upheaval, a lot of conflicts, and people are so polarized. um, it's difficult to survive in that type of environment without having like solid support. And personally, for me, this is something that I have been kind of, working out in my life for as long as I have been, an adult, basically. But specifically in the context of like getting support online, because I know that, some people don't have people in real life that you can rely on and so on. I can see that it's so much more difficult to find solid support with like online communities sometimes. But I want you all to know that it's possible. And if anything else fails, like there's no family members or loved ones in your immediate environment, like cultivating resilience with online friends, which to me means like checking in on each other on a regular basis, making sure that you are never staying silent when you are actually in pain or struggling with something, just cultivating this kind of openness about struggling, um, is something that to me personally has been very helpful. Because I know, at least for me, I have the tendency to just close off and basically suffer in silence. And that's like the opposite of what helps in situations like that. So, resiliency to me means community. It means having people around you that you can trust and lean on each other when things are really rough, honestly. Other than that, the ancestors, when it comes to the craft aspect of it, um, I think our ancestors, and especially if you are Polish like me, but I mean, like other folks also have similar aspects of this, wherever you are in the world. But I am looking at it through this context as a Polish person. Our ancestors, they have been through so much war, displacement, just horrific stuff historically that has been happening to them. They are experienced in surviving through very harsh circumstances. So, if you are looking for support, for guidance, for wisdom, and you are looking for somebody to teach you about resilience, to teach you about how to survive through hardship, the ancestors can really aid you in that. If you reach out for them to support you, to guide you. I know that this may also sound like a cliche, but I think it's just so important to know that they are there. And, you know, when, if you are an animist specifically, if you go out there anywhere and you listen to the land, I feel like, at least that's been my personal experience. Okay, this is UPG, but I feel like they have been fucking screaming like, guys, listen to us, do not repeat the same fucking mistakes. Okay, listen to us, we've been through this shit, we can guide you. I think that's something that's really important to remember when it comes to just coping with the shit that we are coping with globally. Listen to them, they've been through this, they survived this, otherwise you wouldn't be here. Okay, You can trust them. And if you've never worked with the ancestors, I think it's a great time to start and to be consistent with that. It's a really good time to do that. Many of us might not have experience with opposing the authorities or dealing with a very harsh political climate where you really don't know who you can trust. Um, so yeah, they can teach you. Trust them. Really, I think it's very important. So that's my, I think, the only somewhat cohesive things I can say about that. So now I guess we can move on to the readings. Well, I am glad you have a similar experience. Yeah. Every time I think about that, I just like, honestly, Loki, just want to cry. Because yeah, it stirs a lot of like emotional baggage within uh to be dealing within those realms, right? Yeah, yeah, exactly. So allow it to happen. I think we need it, honestly. I honestly think we need it on a collective scale, but I always try to avoid using the collective scale kind of thinking, because a lot of the times it's inaccurate. So I'm very careful with that assessment. But yeah, anyway, let's move on to the readings. So for folks who requested readings, there's just three that I have here from Patreon for rewatching later, I think some of you at least. So Robert asked, I'm wondering if I'll be offered a job where I used to work in the next few weeks. So let's go for it. Okay. And again, today I'm using the Bohemian Gothic Tarot, which is, you know, dark Czechia essentially themed. I absolutely love it. I've been having this deck in my collection for quite a long time, but haven't been using it much the past few years. So I was kind of happy to just crack it open recently and been using it like the past week or two. And yeah, it's the vibe. So let's go back to the question. Robert is asking if he will be offered a job where he used to work in the next few weeks. Let's see. Okay, so you know, I always also look at the card at the bottom, so I will get to that in a second. But we got the Five of Wands for you. I hope you can see that well. But it's essentially like this person standing against a group of some kind of like apparitions, spirits, ghosts, and there is conflict, right? So I think this may indicate that there's some kind of movement towards a connection, let's just put it that way. But there might be conflict of interests on some kind of level, be it like establishing the pay or establishing the amount of hours per week or whatever. Like something might be a conflict point with that. Okay, so be on the lookout, because the other card I got is the, let me show the whole thing, the Wheel of Fortune. Okay. So that shows me that something's definitely shifting. When we get the Wheel of Fortune, it's essentially saying your fate is changing in some way. Now you need to be on the lookout if you're asking about them reaching out to you from the old workplace, right? It's possible something's shifting, but it might not necessarily be an ideal option. So just see what pops up, either like conflict with them or with your current workplace. Like something's not going to be fully smooth in that regard. That's how I'm kind of seeing it. So another one. So Kazimir is asking, I would love a reading about what to do to find my path forward as a bee worker. So let's see. Ooh, that's so cool. I love that. We got the magician. I'm sorry, this is kind of grainy. I love this magician, by the way. He's so cool. So, okay, in this regard, you're asking about working with the bees, right? I think it would be cool to take this as an opportunity to not just perceive this as, a chore or some kind of like a job or something like in a casual manner, but instead try to see this as a spiritual discipline, something that requires the kind of skills that a magician in this particular case, right, a practitioner needs to cultivate relationships. When you're working with bees, it would be really cool, and I'm sure you already know this, and that's probably how you are approaching this, but perhaps this card is just confirming that for you right now. It would be nice to approach the bees as a collective that you can, you know, communicate with, commune with, to ensure that your, mutual relationship and the cooperation that you have with each other is actually rooted in ensuring that both parties know what they want from each other, that you are kind of sensitive to their needs, all of that. So the magician is kind of just reinforcing this animistic idea that, those bees, they are persons and they would probably like for you to be in communion with them, to know what they would like from you. And they might also be your messengers, right? Because that's what we know a lot from folklore. Last month I was writing about the folklore of bees, so there's a lot of info about how they've always been those divine messengers from the spirits, from the gods, and so on. So that just kind of reinforces that idea for you. I hope that helps. Let me sip some tea. Yes. Well, do let me know how that goes for you. I'm very curious. And the last one. Okay, the last one is from Raven. There's like a bit of a longer message, so I'm just going to go for it. I would be grateful for a reading. I'm newer to tarot and have been getting some pretty inauspicious readings lately. You know what? Just before I read the rest, by the way, many of us have been experiencing some inauspicious everything lately. Readings, dreams, just magic not working as you would like. Please keep in mind that we are currently in this kind of like dark period. I mean, not equinox, it's obviously the equinox, but I mean the eclipse season. We just had the moon eclipse earlier this month, and yesterday we had the solar eclipse as well. And I am finding that so many people have been experiencing this kind of shit lately, where things are not working, everything's breaking down. It feels like somebody's magically attacking you. There's some wonky spirit activity. People have some old wounds kind of popping up to the surface, all of that shit. I've been asking around because I've been having some shit happening as well. I was sharing this on our Discord earlier today in the morning. But essentially, I have been sleeping with my rosary under my pillow. And this morning, when I got up, as usual, I get up from bed and I want to put on my Crocs. But I got so spooked because it turned out that somehow, magically, the rosary that was under my pillow was in one of my Croc shoes. Like, that couldn't have physically happened on its own during the night because the shoes were too far for that to happen. So there's that when it comes to spooky omens and shit not working as it's supposed to. So yeah, just keep that in mind. If you're getting bullshit readings lately, it just might be the eclipse season. But anyway, to continue, Raven says, I think they're related to letting go of a lot of old habits and beliefs and coping mechanisms that are holding me back. And in a bit of a victim mentality. I would love some more guidance for how to make my way through this time of change. Okay, yeah, sure. I can pull some cards or like a card, I guess, for you to see where you are being guided to help you deal with this situation. But yeah, just don't blame all of that on yourself, or don't assume the worst basically, because it might just be the fucking eclipse, honestly. Like, our ancestors actually were pretty spooked by eclipses. They believed that eclipses are like the absolute reversion of the natural order, like everything's turned upside down and like turned uh, wrong side out and stuff like that. So people would really like hide indoors. They would cover the wells. They would make sure that none of their animals are outside, not to be hit with this eclipse energy, because they believed that it was really, evil basically, and it could cause harm. So just saying, right? Like this is not something that is beneficial in general, right? When it comes to working magic, I'm sorry, I'm like so rambly today. When it comes to working magic, eclipses can be very, very helpful for heretical work, or for working with spirits who also, right, in a heretical manner, utilize this reversion, like reverting things to achieve their purposes, which is completely valid. And that would, for example, be working with folkloric devils, right? That can be very, very useful. But other than that, if we are not actively kind of harnessing the eclipse energies, we might still be affected. It might just, cause for something in our life to be exactly the opposite of what we would wish for it to be, essentially. But yeah, let's see the guidance for you to be coping with all of that stuff that's kind of popping up to the surface for you. Okay. Yep. We got the Four of Swords. You know what that means? That means that your nervous system is overstimulated. You are exhausted and you are at a point where you need proper rest. Are you burnt out, perhaps? Is there something that's like bothering you to the point where you feel like you can't escape it? It feels like you really need some proper rest. Make sure that your sleeping routine is good. Make sure that you are eating well, and taking care of yourself, because that will probably help establish this foundation for your nervous system to calm down. And from that point, it will be much easier to deal with the stuff that's bubbling up, because there's nothing worse. And I know, because I've been in similar spots lately as well, and it's been really fucking rough to deal with. Like, I would be lying if I said that it wasn't, where a lot of shit is popping up, and we like are poorly sleeping, or unable to like take care of ourselves, basically, because it's just making everything worse, and then you're spiraling. Before you know it, it's hell. Okay, so yeah, make sure you're taking good care of yourself, and just making sure that you're tending to your nervous system to calm it down properly. If you need like outside help with that, what usually helps, and it's universal for most of us humans, like just having somebody safe to cuddle with, or like somebody doing something good for you, like wrapping you in a blanket and giving you some nice cozy food and stuff like that, can help us a lot, sometimes more than it sounds like. So yeah, anyway, good luck to you, and I hope that it passes soon and you feel better, because yeah, I imagine that's rough. Yep. Fingers crossed for you, and sending hugs. Okay, I'm just gonna scroll up now to catch up with the questions. Again, if you would like me to answer your question with this deck of cards, just make sure you write the question in caps lock so I can actually see it. Okay, so somebody with the name VV is asking, I'd love to know what my guides want me to know for the coming dark part of the year. All right, let's see. Love your name. Those two tiny V's. Looks like vampire fangs or something. Ooh. Okay. So we got an interesting kind of situation. First of all, we got the King of Cups. So if we're talking about, guides and spirits, to me, this would like immediately indicate that one of the spirits you're working with, who may be having either like this fatherly kind of dynamic to them, or more like a caring provider kind of vibe to them, in the sense that you can rely on them, that they are safe. That kind of spirit would be asking for more attention during this dark half of the year. And of course, here I think we have Nosferatu, the old school one from before the Eggers version. So yeah, that kind of a vibe. And also, that's so important for you during this dark half of year, because the card that we got at the back was the Seven of Wands. So there is a potential that at some point during the coming months in the dark half of the year, you might find yourself in a position where you really need to stand your ground and protect either your values, or your safety, or yourself from some kind of an attack. I'm not going to interpret beyond that, because I really don't know, based just on these two cards, which direction this goes. But essentially, you may be prepared for a situation where you will have to stand your ground, and this spirit might be the key to helping you navigate that. So make sure you identify that one and ask them some more about this before shit hits the fan, because that can help you prepare. That's really helpful to kind of know in advance how things can develop potentially. Anyway, good luck. Okay, so Jacob Grimm is asking, I'd like to know what the spirits think about my choice of master's thesis. Any advice in this regard? Oh, okay. That's a fun question. I love questions like that. What do the spirits think about your choice of your master's thesis, and any advice? Ooh, okay. Interesting. Whoa. Okay, all right. So let's start from the beginning. Okay. These cards are kind of sus. Let me tell you that. First of all, we got the Seven of Swords, which normally is the kind of card that would indicate some kind of theft. So I don't know, in the context of a master's thesis, that's kind of a weird thing to pop up, honestly. Maybe make sure that I don't know, something about your sources or the way you're writing. Just make sure, like, double check if all of the sources are legit or something, because there might be some inconsistencies that might pop up later and kind of make your work difficult. This kind of seems like a warning in some way, that just be on the lookout for either that, or like somebody trying to steal your ideas, maybe, that kind of a vibe I'm getting. And then we also got Five of Cups, which is a card that essentially shows like either being dissatisfied with something, disappointed with something, or grieving something. So this could either mean that the spirits are maybe nudging you in the direction that you might not like this topic in the long run. So maybe reconsider either that, or that writing this thesis, I don't know, like, what's the field that you are writing this within. But sometimes, and I know this from experience for sure, because I experienced that as well, just incidentally, that when you conduct research or write a thesis about something, it may like heavily change your outlook on things, even on life itself, and like make you either like change your beliefs or undergo some kind of like a huge shift in the context of not values, but like the things that you consider true, basically. So I don't know, like these two cards together are showing me some kind of like uncertain ground in this regard, you know? That's all I'm gonna say because I don't want to overinterpret, but that's interesting. That's really interesting. And this might not be like something that's a big deal. These are not major arcana cards, okay? These are both minors. So they are indicating not something that's gonna like ruin your life in any way, or nothing like that. But you asked, so I'm just a humble messenger here. But anyway, let's move on. Okay, I think the next question would be from Joshua Lewis, right? How does someone start working with the ancestors? My family came over before the First World War, and much of what they had was either lost or destroyed. Very little history remains. Um, I actually answered a question about working with the ancestors at the beginning of this stream. So if you would like to know that, like in general, working with the ancestors, how I approach it, then you might want to rewatch this live actually. But I see that this is like a more complex question where you are asking because there's a lot that's like missing from your maybe family history, or you don't know much about the like culture and all of that. What you're saying about your family coming over before the war, and much of what they had was either lost or destroyed. I am hearing a lot of similar stories from folks of the diaspora in general. Like this is kind of to it appears to be this way, that it seems to be something that can be expected whenever your ancestors were displaced or forced to move because of either like hardships or wars or some kind of other dicey situations that they found themselves in. Honestly, other than directly working with the ancestors and asking them to teach you about this stuff, I think what helps the most is finding your community. So finding the kind of people who are in a similar situation as yourself, in communities like that. For example, our community here is very much focused around Polish and Slavic, folklore, ancestry, customs, culture, and all of that. So if your ancestors were Polish or Slavic, in our community, you can be sure to find a lot of people with similar stories as yours, and thus be able to learn from them about how they navigated, learning more about their family members, or learning directly from me about the culture, customs, traditions, and magic of your ancestors. But if you aren't Polish or Slavic, making sure that you find some kind of equivalent for your ancestral background with that can be very, very helpful, I think, because having a community and not having to do all of this alone by yourself, I think, is a major game changer. It makes things so much easier to just be able to talk to people who get it, and who are in a similar situation with that, and the kind of discoveries that they have been making, all of that. I think that's priceless, honestly. And on a personal level, I have been learning so much from the diaspora folks in terms of just your resilience, and how much you care about your roots, and uncovering, um, information about the past of your ancestors, their lived experiences, the things they believed, all of that. I really respect that a lot, Yeah. Let's move on. Question from Phantom Element. I'd like to know if the spirits think I'm on the right track with my current spiritual path. Okay, let's see if the spirits think you are on the right track. Oh, I had a jumper here. Whoa. You want a short answer? Because that would be yes. But just to explain why, we got the Emperor. That was the card that jumped out of the deck during shuffling, and very like, I can tell. I've been doing this for a while. When a card jumps in a particular way, it wants to be the one that's displayed. So I took the hint. So the Emperor is essentially like, your foundation. You know where you stand. You can you have an outlook on what you're doing, essentially, right? So that would mean yes, but also it's reinforced by none other than the Nine of Pentacles, which is also like the perfect card to indicate that you know yourself, you know where you're at, and you are like established, essentially. Okay, so these two cards, I would say, are just plain yes. I hope that helps. Okay. Do not obey in advance. I love that username. Question. I'll be traveling to Turkey and Greece next week for 2 weeks. Some concerns with my health and keeping up, and worried how the long trip will affect me. What do the cards say? And part two, will my cat be okay being boarded while I am away? 2 weeks. Okay, so maybe we will pull for each one of those separately, because I don't think one card is gonna suffice. So you're worried how the trip will affect you, essentially. What do the cards say? Well, the cards don't say much in and of themselves, but the spirits do. We already got a jumper card, by the way, but I keep shuffling. hmm Okay, because the card that jumped at me was the moon. And it may be indicating essentially that it's not going to be a fully smooth process. We got the Page of Swords as the second card. So that also shows me that like some things are kind of obvious about situations like this, like it will take time to adapt. The change of environment and everything is not going to go unnoticed on your body, obviously, but that's something that would be affecting most people. Okay. Do you have any, like, sorry to ask this, and I know like this is on the verge, I usually do not touch the subjects of like diagnosis, health, and stuff like that, so do not answer here, please, okay? Because we don't want to entertain that kind of shit for many, many reasons, including ethical. But do you have any autoimmune stuff? Because if yes, then the card I got at the back, which is the Five of Wands, may be indicating that there's going to be some kind of flare up or something like that involved in the situation. Just be on the lookout on how your body is adapting, essentially. If there's any like medical ways in which you can ensure that it's going to be smoother on your body to adapt to the journey itself and the new conditions in the place where you are going, it would be wise to just be safe and make sure that you are taking those steps to like prepare yourself just in case. Okay, that's all I'm gonna say, because again, with health stuff and all of that, I try to be very, very careful, because the way things appear in the cards and in divination in general, I don't think it's always safe to be interpreting them in the context of things of such importance as health, because that can influence literally your life, your aliveness. So yeah, take everything I said with a grain of salt, and I always say this because it's important to me that you know where I stand on this. Okay. And now, will your cat be okay being boarded while you are away for 2 weeks? Let's see. Hmm. We have a process here. So at first, it's going to be closed out. Okay. But that's kind of to be expected. He also needs to adapt to a new environment in some ways, or like the new situation where you are not with them, right? But then we have the Knight of Pentacles, which is like basically being obviously like kind of guarded but well rooted in his position. So he's basically like I'm saying he, but I don't know. They are going to adapt over time. So it's going to be difficult at first, but then kind of as the days pass, it's going to be easier for them. So I think they're going to be okay in the long run. Like, should be fine. Although I know it's always hard to travel when we have cats or dogs and can't take them with us. It's always so bittersweet, and you're always kind of feeling low key guilty about it because, yeah, breaks your heart. Yeah. I know how it is. I'm a cat mom, so yeah, you're welcome. I don't know how you say your name. Really sweet, I think, is the next person. Can you ask what is it I'm needing from my relationship? Why am I second guessing? Let's see. Haven't been answering relationship questions in a long while. I used to do card readings, like, let's say professionally, which means like in exchange for payment many years ago at this point for some time. And that's when I did the most relationship readings in my life ever. It's been a long while, but it's always kind of fun to revisit the concept, I suppose. So what is it that you're needing from your relationship, and why are you second guessing? Okay. Ooh. Yeah, I can see some kind of conflict here. Like, I mean, conflict not like with another person, but within yourself. Oh my god. This is fun. Okay. So I can see this. Like, first of all, Eight of Cups, which is a card that's like something inside you is telling you to move on, but then also something inside you is telling you Four of Wands, which is like, let's get married. So you're like, okay, I need to run away, but I also want to get involved. Like, yeah, I can see that. Okay. And to me, these two cards together, they kind of scream, I don't know. Again, I don't want to over interpret, so take everything I'm saying with a grain of salt. Again, similarly to health issues, the cards can't tell you what to do with your heart, and whether they are not like a substitute for your gut feelings and all of that. But do you have, maybe by any chance, like an avoidant attachment style or something to that effect, where either within this relationship or in general, like something's triggering your response where you feel like you want to flee? And sometimes, like, paradoxically, even feeling too safe in a relationship can trigger that within some people. So I don't know if that's your situation. It seems that you are conflicted or like second guessing in some regard, and you're like in a state of unrest about it, because these are two very fucking conflicting cards. Like, yeah, like something's going on, definitely something's like popping off in terms of defense mechanisms. And now, it's always wise in general in situations like this to establish whether this is something that's, again, triggering a mechanism within yourself that's dictated by something that's just been your overall experience in life, um or whether you are actually getting like red flags because something's going down from that person, you know what I mean? So essentially like figuring out if you are maybe reacting emotionally to a situation based on over interpreting facts, or like, getting some vague signals, I would say, without seeing like solid, or being able to interpret the relationship with the other person and be able to like solidly pinpoint, okay, this person is like this and that doesn't work for me, or this person behaved in this way, okay, that's a red flag for me, or okay, this person makes me feel in a way that I really do not appreciate. That can't be something that I accept in a relationship long term. Okay, so basically like making sure that if you are feeling unrest around something like emotionally in a relationship with anybody, trying to pinpoint where that is coming from and whether that's coming from your actual interactions with that person or from within you, and why, that can help. And that's, I know that's not always easy, but why I'm saying all of this in this context is because we got temperance as the kind of way out of this. And temperance, as we know, is indicating that there's some kind of imbalance within ourselves, like something is, some kind of chaotic element is obscuring our perception of the situation. So maybe it would be helpful to either um, use these kind of cognitive tools, you could say, to be able to establish if am I making shit up, or is this actually like a signal that I'm receiving from this relationship, right? Like pinpointing things basically. If you feel like it's difficult to do that alone, and a lot of the times it is, right? um Consult somebody you can trust. Ask them like genuinely, okay, what do you think? Like, do you think this is a good relationship for me? If yes, why? If no, why? Like, I need advice, and it would be nice to consult a few people, and like ideally somebody whom you know can form safe relationships with others, and not asking like the dramatic friend who's always breaking up with everybody, because they might not be the best advisor, you know what I mean? So anyway, that's all I have to say. uh Always with fucking relationship stuff, like you can get so invested in a reading like that and just going on, you know what I mean? So yeah, I don't want to overdo it. I hope that was helpful in any way. Okay, the next question is from Rachel Metzgar. What should I be doing for work to make enough money to actually live on? We all ask ourselves these questions lately, don't we? I'd like to have my own business since I have a bunch of health issues that severely impact what I can do. Yeah, that's valid. I feel you. That's definitely something that I'm seeing like a lot of people in my circles, just in general, struggling with in this fucking like economy and everything that's going on. Yeah, it's hell, right? So hey, happy Equinox. Okay, so Rachel again, what should you be doing with the cards? With tarot, as usual, we will see what pops up, but this might not be like a definitive answer because we don't have like actual names of businesses listed here, but we can kind of try and figure something out based on the card that pops up, I guess. But we know that you need something that can work with your health issues, but still, so you can make enough money. Whew. Oh shit. Wow. Okay. So we got judgment. In this context, like the first thing that would pop up, uh, hop to mind would be something to do with like legal things or like court things. that kind of stuff. But looking broader, right? Because we are not just like stereotypically reading the cards here. Any kind of like work, business, anything that has to do with assessing things for people, you know, passing judgment. This can be very broad, and it seems like maybe you are quite good at doing this in some kind of way. Like this can be either helping people like interpret some things. Even being a card reader actually is this kind of vibe in some way, or like doing, I don't know, just things that come up to me randomly right now is like doing some kind of like beauty analysis. I've been seeing people doing those seasonal things, like judging somebody's complexion based on these wheels of colors and shit. That's the kind of vibe, like passing judgment as a job. Figure out where you are good at this, and it might actually turn to be some kind of like infinite well of easy money for you. That's the kind of vibe I'm getting. And by the way, the card that came up at the bottom was the devil. And this is very interesting in this regard because it's telling me that this judgment aspect of this business that you might go for may have something to do with allowing people to indulge in themselves a little bit, that kind of brunch, you could say. So, anyway, again, I don't want to go too specific because we could go into really weird directions here, but I hope that's enough of a hint anyway for you. Maybe you can figure it out based on that. Okay, Julian Victoria is asking, will I be successful in finding a publisher for my books? Oh, yay. I hope so, because I would love to read them. Whoa, whoa, whoa. I'm having so many cards flying at me here. So I actually got 4 cards for you. Interesting. Let me just see what I have here first, because that's a lot. The first two that, let me just like bring it up. The first two that came up was in this order: the 10 of Pentacles, which essentially to me says like, okay, yeah, this is a possibility, because these people, the 10 of Pentacles, they are fucking established. Okay. Then we have the Knight of Cups, and I would assume that's you. You are very invested in your project and you really wanted to like be seen out there and picked up by somebody who is established and can make it happen for you, right? And then we have the High Priestess and Ace of Swords. So to me, this indicates that maybe you're missing like some kind of a puzzle in this whole situation, like missing a piece of information that would make this possible for you. Either like, I don't know, do message me or somebody else who's in the in the field, let's say, about this, because sometimes it's kind of hard to figure out what the publishers are on the lookout for, or that kind of stuff, like technicalities. And trust me, I'm a newbie in this regard. I just written my first book, which is going to come out in December, so I'm no expert. But navigating this whole thing, like there's been so many things that I personally like didn't know that I was supposed to know, and all that kind of stuff. So this is showing me that, like, yeah, there are people who might be interested out there, but maybe you are missing some kind of key piece of information that would actually make it easier for you to reach them, so that you are heard, actually, so that you are received the way you would like to. So yeah, definitely would be cool to consult somebody about like where you're at, what you've done already, all that kind of stuff, and maybe somebody can advise you on this key piece of information so that you know how to proceed. That's kind of what I'm seeing personally. But yeah, it's very possible, because they are definitely out there, the established folks who might want to pick you up, essentially, right? Okay. Um, Jasper is asking, am I on the right path for myself with my choice to go back to school, choice of field? Also, happy Equinox. Yeah, happy Equinox to you too. So, are you on the right path for yourself with your choice to go back to school slash choice of field? Hmm. Ooh. Okay, guys, I'm like getting I love this when this happens. I love how the cards, and for some reason I'm always getting this so far with these live streams, like the cards at some point they begin to flow so fucking well. I love it. So yes. The hierophant, you know, this is a learned person. This is somebody who's a scholar or doing some kind of like teaching learning stuff, right? So yeah, it does seem like it's in the cards for you for sure. And now we also got justice. Is that by any way like related to the choice of field maybe? If so, I think it's kind of nicely laid out there for you, you know? So I would definitely go for it. I think justice in this regard is also like expanding your horizons so that you can see a more complete picture of, you know, I don't know, like the situation around you in some way, or gaining a deeper, better understanding of life or how things work, that kind of a vibe in general. So in this context, like learning so that you have this amount of knowledge that allows you to either like achieve some kind of justice or be able to judge how things work, you know. I don't know what field you chose, but that's kind of the overall vibe I'm getting. Yeah, I think whatever you chose, it seems to be all right for you. Not in caps lock, but I see a question. Is there a side hustle you recommend to help bring in extra cash? I'm not the right person to ask this kind of stuff. I suck at any business related shit, you know? So I'm just a girl out there trying to survive just like everybody else. I've never been inclined towards like having this kind of brain to be able to I don't know what works, what doesn't in this regard. Yeah, honestly, don't ask me. I'm not a good advisor. I just want to like abolish late stage capitalism so we can all, you know, live in peace or something. That would be nice. Hmm. Okay, Vesper is asking, how will the upcoming academic year go for me as a lecturer? Wow, okay. What should I pay attention to slash prepare myself for, aside from the obvious uni prep, of course? Let's see. That's exciting. Wow, I love that for you. Okay, what I'm about to say is so wrong. I'm sorry, but that's what's in the cards. Yeah, I'm half joking and half not joking. We got the Two of Cups, so just like prepare yourself that maybe one of your students or like somebody you're working with might like you more than you would like or something. Like I'm seeing some kind of crush or something like that potentially. Yeah, so just saying that might be a thing, but in general, like I also got at the back of the deck, I got the 10 of Pentacles, so it seems like overall it's going to be a great experience with the whole being a lecturer and all that. Not necessarily, you know, romance, but just saying like something's out there. funny. Okay, Rosalie's library is asking, how can we best work with the balancing energies of today's equinox? Is this something that you would like me to pull cards for, or just like answer? I don't know. I'm gonna pull a card. So I'm just gonna pull for you. How can you best work with the balancing energies of today's equinox? If this is for you. Interesting. So what we got is the Four of Pentacles, which to me shows that you might be wise to do some kind of working to protect what you have, like either protect your financial situation or protect your household, just making sure that whatever you have, your like stability, your foundation, right, in whatever aspect of life, but this is usually like tangible stuff, that it's well protected, okay, that you're not letting go of it. Don't make any like frivolous purchases at this time. Maybe do some protection magic, that kind of stuff. That's what I'm getting for you. So yeah. And it's a good time of year to do this kind of work anyway, like for anybody. So maybe that was a question for how can we best work with the balancing energies of today's equinox after all. I know I'm definitely gonna be like refreshing some of my words around the household in the coming weeks for sure. That's what I would usually do this time of year anyway. And yeah, it's a good time to do that kind of work in general. And if you don't have any household protections by any chance, like maybe it's a good time to change that. Okay. Maybe I'm just going to pull a card for myself as a kind of wrap up, and we can slowly wrap this up unless anybody else would like to squeeze in a last minute question. But other than that, I would like to maybe ask for some fucking advice. Like, give me something that I should know at this time. It's the equinox after all. Whoa. Okay. I'm not going to share that. Sorry. Good to know. Good to know. Yeah, all right. So I don't think anybody's asking any questions. So we are going to be wrapping up. This is longer than usual anyway, because we usually go on for an hour, and this is almost an hour and a half already. So again, happy equinox to everybody. I really hope that everybody's doing well. We were talking a bit about resilience and all of that today, and I think that's a really important topic. So I just hope everybody stays safe. Please make sure that you're not alone with struggles if you have any, okay? Make sure that you reach out to community, to people you can trust always. We are all in this shit together, dealing with everybody knows what that's happening in the world right now. So I am just rooting for all of us that we may persevere with health, with safety, to the other side of whatever the fuck this is, honestly. So fingers crossed for all of us for this dark half of the year, so we may thrive and prosper in whatever way is accessible to us at this time. Yeah, thank you so much, guys, for coming. It's been so nice to hang out with you. Yeah, take care and see you around. Bye.